Awesome. All right. We're going to be talking, God's putting something on my heart. I'm not ready yet, so we're not doing it tonight, but the Great
Okay.
Awakening. The Great Awakening is what
Yes.
what it is at this moment. So I'm really excited as it's stirring up in my heart and in my mind. But tonight I wanted to talk about when God doesn't make sense. Think about your life. Every now and then, God does something, right? That just doesn't make sense. You're like, what? What? So we're going to go into the book of Exodus, in which there's so many times where God makes a move that just doesn't make any sense. So tonight we're going to be looking at Exodus 17 in particular. But think about your own personal life. Any examples of times when God has done something that just boggled your mind? You're like, that makes no sense, God, whatsoever. What is it like when God just doesn't make any sense?
I'm having a hard time.
Okay, so
Oh, go ahead.
okay, so seriously, the war in Ukraine, I'm like, okay, God, this does not make sense.
Yes.
Like, period. It
Yeah.
doesn't make sense at all, and no one can explain it right for me to get it.
Right.
And
Right.
being indifferent makes sense to me, to just
Mhm.
almost like insulate myself from feeling alive. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Me too.
G, what were you about to say?
Oh no, I just say it seems hard to like remember like a time. I'm like, I know it's happened so many times.
Right.
Like I remember the general feeling, but not the instances themselves. Like
Right.
I remember just always feeling like, wow, I don't get it, or I don't get a lot of what God's doing most of the time. Once I do see like, oh, there was much more than I first saw going on. And yeah, I can think of like thousands of times in my childhood, in my upbringing, like I just didn't understand what was going on half the time. And now I see a lot of it, how it influenced my life now, and how, I moved like every 3 to 6 months as a child. And I always wonder, like, why are we always moving? But now I'm married to someone who plays basketball and we have to move every 6 months. And, it feels like nothing to me. And I'm like, wow, I was really prepared for this, because all the women, I don't think I could do that, or I don't know how you uproot yourself all the time. Like for me, this is normal. So, like random little things like that, or even when my husband and I got married, like what he was struggling with was like my biggest fear. And so I'd be like, God, what are you doing? Why? I turned to you. I trusted my love life to you. And I don't ever want to be in a certain situation. And now this is a situation that I'm dealing with. Like, I'm not really sure what you're doing. But now I've seen how he's worked through that situation, really to build my faith and just my trust in men in general. And also it helped my husband as well. So I just see a lot of the times the things I'm like, what are you doing that doesn't make sense? It really all does make sense. I'm just not seeing it clearly at the moment.
Exactly.
Wow. That is so
Exactly.
cool.
Very good. That's what we're going to look at. Obviously, the Bible is chock full of examples, because God seldom makes sense to us in the moment, and as always, I like for us to look beyond just reading the words on the page, because we can become so familiar and it just simply becomes a story. But to be able to apply it to our own lives, like G is saying, go, why did I have to move so many times? It's like things that didn't make sense then, God had a plan for it, but it's all about how do we weather that storm of not understanding when God's expectations are different than ours. So we're going to look in Exodus 17, and all of this is very familiar territory. G, if you don't mind, if I can get you to read 1 through 7, and we'll talk a little bit about that, and then we'll go on from there, ladies, afterwards.
All right. Water from the rock. The whole Israelite community set out from the desert of Sin, traveling from place to place as the Lord commanded. They camped at Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So they quarreled with Moses and said, "Give us water to drink." Moses replied, "Why do you quarrel with me? Why do you put the Lord to the test?" But the people were thirsty for water there, and they grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to make us and our children and livestock die of thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What am I to do with these people? They are almost ready to stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go out in front of the people, take with you some of the elders of Israel, and take in your hand the staff with which you struck the Nile, and go. I will stand there before you by the rock of Horeb. Strike the rock, and water will come out of it for the people to drink." So Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel, and he called the place Massa and Meribah, because the Israelites quarreled and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Okay, we're familiar with this, Moses striking the rock and the whole water thing. What do we see? What's happening with the people here?
The people have just been provided for, like God has protected them and brought them into the desert. He's given them food. He's everything they've asked for, he's nourished them. And then the moment they step into a different area, it's like, now we don't have water. So they are, instead of going, "Okay, God, you'll provide," they're like, "Oh, no, where is this guy who's the leader? Let's go for him."
Okay. Yes. The minute it gets uncomfortable, the minute it's not what they expected it to be, we start grumbling and complaining about it, right?
Yeah.
So here they are. How did they end up here in this the desert of sin? Who led them there?
God.
God led them there.
God. Mm-hmm.
God led them into a desert that had no water.
To test them?
That doesn't make sense too.
Exactly. When God's moves doesn't make sense, God led them into a desert to camp. Now, usually when they camp, that's their time to revitalize. They just came through some stuff. Now we're going to set up camp, recoup, and go again. So God leads them to a place to recoup that has no water. So you go, "God, why would you do this?" And the minute things does not make sense to us, we start trying to make sense of it, right?
Right, yeah.
But look at what they said. "Is the Lord among us or not?"
Mm-hmm.
Not trusting.
Not trusting. Not trusting. Attitudinal. So God, are you with me? Are you not with me? Were they doing what God called them to do? Were they going where God called them to go? Hey, girls, everybody, we're in Exodus 17. Were they being obedient to God or disobedient to God?
Well, but there's also the other part, because sometimes obedience and trust are mainly because you have a friendship, a relationship with the person. So so did they even have a good enough relationship to get to that point where they're like, "Oh, we can obey you, we can trust you"? Because they look straight at Moses, is the one they feel like he's the one in charge. So they do not see, I don't know.
Right. Okay. But here God led them to this place. He said through Moses, "I want you to lead the people to the desert of sin." Did they go?
Yeah.
They went.
Where were they headed?
Yes. Nowhere land.
They were
Probably thought to the promised land.
They were being led to the promised land. So I want us to get this picture. I really want us to get the picture. We're saying, "God, I'm going to follow wherever you tell me to go." So he says, "Okay, go into the desert of sin." There's no water there, but we're going to the promised land. So to that mind of theirs, just like to our minds, we're like, "What?" So you try to get to the promised land, but you're taking us to a desert that has no water. We're gonna die. Right? So when God doesn't make sense, we start to try to either make sense of it or we turn from God or God's man, which in this case was Moses. Why did you bring us out here to die with no water? What's up with that? I love what Brenda had pointed out. This isn't the first time God has led them to this place. If you think back, go back to,
Right.
yeah, don't turn it. But in chapter 14, he was taking them through the Red Sea, right? So it said that he led them to this place in which they were cornered. They were between a rock and a hard place. God led them to a camp in which they are between the Egyptians and the water. And you go, God, why would you do this? You promised us the promised land, but you brought us to a place where we think we're going to die. And then he takes them through. Then he leads them to a place where there was no food, the manna, and he provided the manna from heaven. But this was after they went, God, why would you do this? And God provided. And now he leads them to the place where there's no water. There's a cycle. If you look at it, as unpredictable as God is, he's also very predictable. What's the pattern that we're seeing here?
Testing,
Yes. In what way?
Water.
testing their
Land.
what do you call it? Testing their heart for them or for God.
Okay.
And will they I don't know why. Well, I guess I do know why, because I probably am one of the worst ones, like the Israelites. I'm kind of like doubting
Faith.
Thomas.
But I think most of us, I think the Israelites represent us. Somebody was saying something, I don't know who it was.
Faith.
Faith.
They were testing their faith.
Yeah.
God was testing their faith.
Oh, it's
Yes. But I want us to see, Maureen is right. He's testing, he's strengthening.
the faith. Yeah.
He's strengthening their faith, but he's doing it in a way that I want us to see. He leads them into a difficult, dire situation to see, what are you going to do?
Yeah, I was gonna say, it just seems like another opportunity. He keeps giving them opportunities for them to realize who he is and who they are when they follow him.
Right.
And he did that a lot with the disciples or the apostles all the time, like just kept giving them new scenarios to test the same, not test, I wouldn't say test because that seems negative to me, but just another opportunity to continue for them to get what he's trying to make clear to them.
Yes.
Teach.
Amen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
teach.
Everything that we're in, we have a choice as to how we look at it. Is this an opportunity or is this an opposition? Opportunity or opposition? And every time they came up against it, the initial response was opposition. God, why are you opposing me? Why did you lead us here to die? Moses, why did you? That's our natural response, is opposition. And if we look at our own lives, again, when we don't understand what God is doing, we think that God is doing something negative against us. We see it as it's opposition. Go ahead, Sherry.
Because we relate to the negative part instead of the positive first, I think. At least I do.
Yeah. But if you look at it, he did this. Like we said, chapter 14, chapter 15, chapter 16, we're up to chapter 17. He keeps doing it over and over and over, teaching the same lesson, trying to get a different outcome. It's not like he was angry at them. For those who were with me, I guess it was only G, as we went through the book of John. It's not like he was angry that they didn't get it, but he kept bringing them back through it again. Okay, we're going to go back. We're going to try it again. Okay, we're going to go back. Look at your own life. Where do you feel like God is continually taking you back through something because either your response hasn't been right or you just haven't quite gotten it yet? Is there any area in your life you can identify where you go, Okay, God, we're on chapter 15 on this one, aren't we?
Now that you're discussing it, yes. Now I've been figuring out why something has been continually, I try to get better and then I fall back and
Mhm. Yep.
but this is going to help.
Yep. God's trying to get you to see it differently. Anyone else?
Yeah, you and I talked about it recently. I see this pattern in my life of, well, I just want to be normal. I just want to kind of have a normal family. And then, for me, even as a kid, the 2-parent home and where you have the house and the yard and, and then get married and, want that. And then that didn't work out. And I'm a single mom and I just, and then I want to be normal with my health you can name it. Everything leads me back to that's what I want, or that's what I expected when I got to this point. It would be kind of normal and settle down and be kind of happily ever after kind of thing. And instead, he's like, no, I'm trying to teach you. You have a story that's not just your typical, and whether it's this scenario or that scenario or this scenario, there's a story there, and I'm trying to tell it through you. And it's not about being normal. Stop trying to do that road, because I'm just keep getting you back to here, and so I'm still trying to accept that and open my eyes. I've been praying, open my eyes so I can see it. And then I just see this pattern. That's like what my heart is of. I just want to, I just want to be kind of regular, not the exception. I always kind of want to, but he's like, that's not who you are. That's not what I created you to be. I have a plan.
Right. That's awesome. Yeah. Since Christy and I had this conversation, you're already getting clearer on it. You know what I mean? It doesn't mean that we're there yet, but we're starting to understand God is not in opposition to me. He's creating an opportunity for me. And once we can cross that threshold, then we can make it through these things differently. The Israelites kept going through it the same way. They'd go through the crossing of the Red Sea, grumbling about it until they got there. Then they were like, woohoo, oh, God is awesome. And then they get to the next thing and they grumble about it. So until we can truly grasp that God has presented an opportunity, there may be a difficult opportunity. It may be a scary opportunity. But when we can finally embrace it as opportunity and not opposition, it changes our attitude about it. And that, I think, is what God is working on. He's working on the attitude of the Israelites. At some point, and we're not going to see it tonight, they reach a point where they no longer grumble and complain, which means they finally learned. But he kept putting them through it and kept putting them through it. But I loved it. I thought it was funny that they said, is the Lord among us or what? In other words, God, are you with me or what? Really, God? Really? Are you against me? What are you doing? That's how we feel often. And that's how we go through life. Let's pick up the next section, picking up in verse 8 through 16. Who wants to finish that off?
I guess I can read it.
Oh, okay. No, you can. Yeah, Sherry, do it. It's okay.
Then Amalek came and fought with Israel at Rephaim.
Good enough.
Moses said to Joshua, choose men for us and go out, fight against Amalek tomorrow, and I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hand. So Joshua did as Moses asked and fought with Amalek. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up on the hilltop. Now, when Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed. And when he lowered his hand, Amalek prevailed. But Moses' hand was weary or heavy, and he grew tired. So they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Then Aaron and Hur held up his hands, one on one side and one on the other side. So it was that his hands were steady until the sun set. So Joshua overwhelmed and defeated Amalek and his people with the edge of a sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this in the book as a memorial and recite it to Joshua, that I will utterly wipe out memory of Amalek from under heaven." Then Moses built an altar and named it, "The Lord is my banner," saying, "The Lord has sworn, the Lord will have a war against Amalek from generations to generations."
All right.
Sorry about.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Thank you. Tell me about that. What jumps out at you guys? Thank you, Sherry, for reading.
Oh, you're welcome.
There is like there's no way we can do life on our own or do survival or face giants on our own. We need support. We need friendships. And then God was so keen on making sure that these things are written down for posterity, so that people will know. And then also to encourage Joshua, because it's kind of, he's like, yeah, that young man needs to remember down the road when Moses is not here that I was fighting with him and for him.
Right. Yeah. Good. Very good. Okay.
I thought it was kind of strange that when Moses had his arms up, they fought harder, and when he put them down, they didn't fight as hard. And I can't figure out why that would be.
Okay, we'll talk some about it. It didn't say they didn't fight hard. It just said when his arms were up, they were winning. When his arms went down, they were starting to be defeated.
But
so we are going to
wouldn't you be fighting, and wouldn't you be, it was like they had to wait for Moses to carry them on.
Well, it represented that the Lord was on their side. The Lord was fighting for them. When his arms were up, when his arms came down, basically they were fighting on their own, which takes us back. I'll come back because I still want to hear what you guys got of it. It takes us back to opposition, opportunity. God, are you with me? God, are you against me? And in Moses's arms being up, representing God, you're with me. Every time his arms went down, at least their own mindset, God, you're against me. And we see it changes the outcome of things, just how we think about it. Just how we think of it. What else jumps out at you guys? We'll come back to that, Sherry.
Fun fact, Amaleks are descendants of Esau.
Yes, they are. I knew you'd catch that. Why is that important, Maureen?
Because they're brothers. They're fighting against brothers are fighting against brothers.
They're fighting against themselves.
Yeah.
Oh.
They're fighting against family, which makes it even harder. The people that you think should be fighting with you is fighting against you. And again, bringing it back to us, regular day life, we all know what that feels like. It may not be with an army, but when your own family or someone really dear and close to you is pushing against you instead of working with you, and just the strife of that, the opposition of that. So thank you, Maureen, for that fun fact. Anything else?
Oh, yeah, there's that part. The Lord is my banner. That character, that name of God. Because with a banner, it's so high that you always will see it. It's never hidden under something.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes. What is important, as Brenda's already talking about it, what's important about a banner? What's the purpose of the banner?
Because before you.
Oh, go ahead.
During that time, the banner was how you knew which side, because they didn't have have colors or things that we have today.
Mhm.
So for them to associate with who they were fighting with, that's how they did it with the banners,
Right,
what side they were on.
right.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna add just about, because I spend a lot of time just on like what nation are you a part of? Like as far as like Americans and being very pro-American. I'm obviously happy to be from America, but when that becomes our identity, you can clearly see that Moses' identity from where he's from, the banner of whatever tribe, country, affiliation you have is God. And so I really love that. The Lord is my banner. That's how I feel now. Like, yes, I'm so grateful to be from America, but that's not where I'm from, or that's not what I'm representing.
Right.
And I think, you know, I don't know, I could go way deeper into that, but that's always the part that stands out to me. And also that Moses built an altar, and we know when altars are built, it's a significant reason.
Right.
And it's a life-changing moment. So for that person, when they build that altar, it's an aha moment for them typically.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. I see some different roles too of maybe how we're chosen or what we're chosen to do, because Joshua and certain men were down fighting,
I knew you catch that too.
in the battle. And then you know, Aaron and Hur were up with Moses holding up his arm. So there was kind of that role there, but then someone, you know, the guys were down there fighting, you know, actually in the trenches kind of thing. So each had their roles, you know, and were chosen to do those roles.
Yeah.
So
Very good. Yes, I want to touch upon all of that. I love this stuff. Anytime, okay, don't let me forget. I want to come back to the banner, but I also want to go to where Chrissy was. So don't let me forget to hit both of them. The banner. Am I wearing the banner of opposition, or am I wearing the banner of opportunity? Because as Maureen, everybody's saying, the banner declares whose side you're on. And as we walk through our everyday lives, am I wearing the banner of God is opposing me? Because if I am, that too says what side I'm on. Or am I wearing a banner saying God is my God of opportunity? Because that says I'm standing under the banner that the Lord is my banner. And this is where these are those moments, as disciples, we have to really pause and go, let me be truthful with myself. Because we can say, I wear the banner that the Lord is my banner because I'm a Christian or because I'm baptized. But that doesn't necessarily say that's the banner that you wear. The banner that you wear is how you look at it when God puts you through something. Am I seeing God as a God who is opposing me? And if that is the case, I'm wearing a different banner, and I've got to get honest about that, because I've got to take that to God and go, God, I'm not meaning to wear this banner of opposition. I want to wear the banner that says everything you put me through is a banner of opportunity. But in order to get there, you got to get honest. You've got to get gut level real. Like Christy was talking, we've been dealing with some stuff in her life. We got to get honest. Just because you want to be normal doesn't mean that's the road God has you on. So is it opposition or is it opportunity? And the more she starts to see, I am fighting against God, the clearer she becomes and the more aligned her life starts to become. But first, it has to start with getting honest. So look at yourself. And that's just an aside. This is your time with God in the morning or tonight. God, I've been wearing a banner, but it hasn't been the banner I've wanted it to be. Or God, thank you for this now being the banner of my life. Okay. But that's just something to take deeper. But I did want to jump into what Christy was talking about. When we are in a battle, and as we see the Israelites are in a battle, we are always in a battle. Y'all agree with that or disagree with that? Nia, do you agree with that? Nia, do you agree with that?
Completely agree.
We're always in a battle, right?
Always.
Now, sometimes the battle is a little bit lighter than others. Sometimes we feel like we're winning that battle. just like Moses' arms were up. And then there are times we feel like, ooh, this train just ran over me. I'm losing big time. The battle is won on two dimensions, two levels. And Christy pointed out what they were. What are those two levels in which our battles are won?
Please, the strategizer and leader, whatever, and then there's the one who's actually executing the whole thing, like engaged in the war or in the battle.
Yeah. Yeah. God always gives you someone on your side, but in our case, I want us to look at, we represent both Moses and Joshua. When God puts us through a battle, there's work that we have to do on the ground. There's work we have to do. And there's work that we have to do in the spiritual realm. We have to do both. We cannot just pray, God, change this. God, there are some of us, we are prayer warriors, and I'm all about prayer warriors, but then we do absolutely nothing to actually change. No action.
No action.
And then you have some that are the opposite. We are work, 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 but God is completely left out of it. And I think that's what we're seeing when we see his arms are up, his arms are down. God is showing us the importance of working this thing the way that he has it planned out, which is we've got to do this on two different dimensions. All right, am I doing the work needed on the ground to achieve what God is offering me from above? Think about the thing that you pray about the most and you ask God for the most. I'm gonna put you on the spot. Are you now doing the groundwork in order for it to come to fruition? What do you think?
I can say that in a certain area, I have done the work, but I also, well, I didn't notice that until things were just really not going well for me. Like, and then others around me, spiritual advisors, whatever, telling me like, yeah, Gianna, you might need to work on this. Like, this is not just, and then me like having to humble myself out and say like, okay, maybe this is a me thing. Maybe I do need to do some stuff here. And then really working at that with my therapist, my own alone time with God, at the same time with people that I talk to, and then really seeing things actually change after that. So I guess I don't remember what your question was, but
good. No, that was beautiful. That was good. I want us to be able to see it clearly. Just like G pointed, you got to be able to, again, it's about being honest with yourself where you are and then seeing it clearly. Because I do believe that we beg and plead and petition God for things that oftentimes we're not willing to actually work for.
yeah.
And we have to see that that is not how the equation works. You're not going to win your battle if you're not willing to invest the work. Neither are you going to win this battle if all you do is work, but you don't actually invest in your relationship with God. Go ahead, G.
This reminds me of, I think it was just me the last time we did these studies, but the blind man that Jesus needed to walk through the crowd before he had his healing. Like when we talk about partnering with Jesus for your healing, doing some of the work, like, you know, it means that much more. But it just reminded me of that story. He had to go through some mess in the crowd before he reached his healing. And he had to do it on his own without the people helping him muddle through the crowd. He was really doing it to get there. So just reminded me of that part of scripture.
Yeah, that was really great, because we look at that and go, dang, Jesus, why are you making this man do all this? Just heal him already. We know you can. That's us seeing it as an opposition. Jesus was seeing it as, no, this is an opportunity for him to grow. This is an opportunity for him to see, how badly do I want this? Am I willing to stumble through the crowd? which is what G's talking about? Am I willing to bump into people and maybe get pushed and shoved and talked about? What kinds of things stops you or slows you down? What kinds of things? I was just on the phone with someone before this study. I feel like people misread me, and what do I need to do for people to get me to understand? I'm going, you know what? That should not be of any importance to you. But for her, it's something that disrupts her walk. She's so concerned about how other people view her that it becomes a stumbling block. So for you, what kinds of things stumble? Maureen?
Lists, busy. I have long lists of things I have to do. I got to get them done. I have to do them. If I don't do them, I might get, I don't know, fired by God. I don't know. I got stuff I got to do. I got to do it. I got to do it.
Impulsive you are.
Yes. I mean, we laugh about it, but if we stop, it's true. We have stuff, and they're usually minor, but they're huge stumbling blocks for us. A list that I didn't get through, or someone didn't get me in conversation. You know, they're little things, but yet they're things that Satan throws in there to get us to see God as opposition instead of opportunity.
It's tied to your worth.
It's tied to your worth.
It's tied to your worth.
Yes.
If you somehow you don't feel well, I don't know. I'm speaking generally. Let's turn it around to, I don't feel worthy unless I accomplish something. And for me, that's my list.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Worth
I think.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. For myself, I find that my opposition, or like because I look at opposition as like a moment to be in stagnation, and it's a lot of overthinking things. But when I'm overthinking things, it's mainly I'm drawing in thoughts of fear and why that wouldn't work and why that wouldn't work, even though I've not gone out and executed it and it proved me wrong. Like there's that constant sense of I will fail. So let's just sit on it, and maybe another idea will come up.
Yeah. Yeah. And meanwhile, time is just passing us by. Right?
Yeah.
And then we get even more disillusion. I'm getting older. I didn't get anything done. So it's just, we see how Satan just works it. And God is trying to work it out of his people. He's going, I've got to work this out of the Israelites so they can see that. I think Brenda said in the very beginning, God showed himself. He stepped in and provided every time. And if we look at our own lives, you can see how God has stepped in and provided. So he's going, if I provided there, why would I not provide here? Why is it that you so readily go to, God's not going to take care of me? God must be against me. It's like we immediately, we project this character onto God, who he is not, but yet we respond as though he is. He is the great provider. He provided and got them through the Red Sea. He provided and fed them manna from heaven. He provided by literally giving them water out of a rock. He is saying, I will provide. Yes, I will put you in sticky situations because I'm stretching you, but I will always go ahead of you, which is what he did, and I will always provide. Last thing I want to hit on, and I believe, again, Brenda hit up on it. In verse 14, it says, then the Lord said to Moses, write this on a scroll as something to be remembered, and make sure that Joshua hears it. Why would he say that? Why was that important? It was interesting that it just kind of jumped out from the rest of it.
I mean, I think because, God obviously knows that Joshua is going to be taking over and going to be getting into sticky situations too. And hopefully he remembers what happened here, because I think that's what we see in communion too. Jesus asks us to do communion because he says, do this in remembrance of me. If we can remember Jesus or remember the moments where God shows up,
Right.
then we can get through them. But oftentimes it's when our hope is stolen, the devil succeeds and gets in there and we get confused or lost for a moment. And so I think he knew that, I was going to say Joseph, not Joseph, Joshua was going to need to remember this moment because he would have some moments of his own to have to face and remember God.
Yeah.
And also, Amalek is a big army, so it's not gonna be taken out in just one fight. So the same enemy that's gonna keep coming back, and God is like, I want him to hear that I will completely blot out the memory of Amalek. So that's so cool. Like God is like, I will completely blot out your resistance.
Right.
Calm down.
Yes. Maureen, were you going to share the same?
Yeah, it's similar. I also wanted to say it goes from generation to generation, all the way to us, so that we have a story or something that's written for us to understand that what happened to this people and why. So remember, their time had not. It's them, Amalek. Yes, their time. They were against God and they were horrible people, and he destroyed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, he didn't destroy them until Esther. Remember?
Yes.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I love that he says that he will blot out, as Brenda was pointing out, he says, I'm going to blot out the whole thing. In other words, you already won. You've already won. Now, I didn't do it right now. I'm not blotting them out right this minute because it's going to go from generation to generation. Yeah. But he's saying this battle is already won because I'm going to blot them all out.
Kind of like Revelations.
I was about to say, it brings us back to us. God already told us, guys, what are you worried about? What are you stressing over? You've already won. But we don't live as though we've won. We live as though we're still in a battle that we're trying on our own to win. And he's saying, I need you to write this down. And I want to make sure you get this on to Joshua. It would be the same as saying, okay, Jesus, write this down. Peter, write this down. Make sure this gets on to Sherry. I need Sherry to get this. I know she's coming down the road, but she needs to know I'm going to blot this whole thing out. You've already won. This is your opportunity. This is not an opposition, your opportunity. Now, what was it that he wanted Joshua to remember? I love what G's saying. I love what everyone. What was it specifically? He said, Moses, write this down because I need him to remember this.
That
I will completely blot out the name of Amalek from under heaven.
What
and
did
he said, he said, for hands were lifted up to the throne of the Lord will be at war against the Amalekites from generation to generation. But that hands were lifted up to the Lord. So he wanted Joshua to remember where his help came from.
Yes. See, that's the part Joshua didn't see it. Remember, Joshua was on the ground fighting. He was on the ground fighting. And God was like, okay, Moses, you got a chance to see the spiritual realm of what was going on. Joshua had a chance to see on the earthly realm what was going on. But I need you, Moses, to write this down because I don't want Joshua to think this came because of how well they were fighting. I need you now to connect the dots. Write this down because he didn't get to see it. He needs to know that as long as you're lifting up to me, we're going to be victorious. But the minute your arms come down and you start doing this yourself, you will be defeated. So he was showing him that you have to do this in accordance with me. As G was saying, he knew Joshua was going to be taking over. So he had to pass on that very spirit and knowledge that he had poured into Moses, now had to go into Joshua. And the last thing he needed was for Joshua to think, we did this. We're strong. And at times they kind of came back, but then we came back and we took them. Because that's how our human nature thinks.
Yeah.
He says, no, I want you to write this down. So for us, we are the ones writing on the tablets of who we are, that's passing it on down to those younger than us. I don't want Nia to think that she's able to do this on her own, even though she's strong and she's mighty. I want her to remember, oh yeah, but BJ, she was up there praying, and that's why I was able to keep, you know what I mean? We have to help our younger ones to make that connection. Moses was there to help Joshua make that connection, because God knew our tendency is to take the credit ourselves and keep going. We're fighting a battle on 2 dimensions, the earthly and the spiritual. And without them both, we will fail. But with them, the battle has already been won. Amen?
Amen.
Amen.